Greetings, welcome to the Metal Book Tavern. So the first half of 2023 is over, and now I think it's time for best books of the year so far. I took into account all the books that I have read from January till June 2023. There are quite a lot of books for this video. Last year I was in a reading slump, therefore there weren't many books for best books of 2022 so far. I was also in a filming slump too. But now I am ready to do so. Here are the best books of 2023 so far, in random order. So the first book I grab is Come As You Are, The History of Nirvana by Michael Azerrad. It's kinda hard for me to pronounce his name, mostly because now I pronounce Michael as Michael. It's a German way to spell this name. In here you have History of Nirvana, you have the biographies of all members up until 1993. Yes, you heard it, this biography was released in the late 1993. So this biography shares how the upbringing of the Nirvana members and how they rose to fame and so on. And it's done in a very good way that isn't very dry. It isn't overfilled with details too much. If you are a Nirvana fan and even simply a casual reader, I recommend reading this. This is definitely for everyone. There are rock and metal biographies that aren't for everyone. They are mostly for the die-hard fans. This can be read by anyone. Yes, there is also a reading log of me reading that book. You can check it out. After reading this, I went back to Nirvana, and there are some songs from the Nevermind album that I really like. I'm still not a huge fan, but some songs are quite cool. I'm probably angering my supervisor with this saying. If you are watching this, yes, some Nirvana songs are quite good. He doesn't like Nirvana. And I also like the edition too. The next book was bought under the influence of another person. To be honest, buying books because someone influenced me is a little bit a touchy subject for me. Especially it was in 2021 because it was the peak of buying books under influence, but I am definitely grateful to the book Leo for making me rediscover this author. She read it and she liked it, and the book is Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Noah Harari. It makes me a little bit sad that this book did not exist around 10 years ago when I was preparing for my university entrance exams. I selected history as a subject. This would have helped me a lot. So in this book, Yuval Noah Harari goes through a history of the world briefly, and it's free of unnecessary details, and the most basic stuff is explained. And also Yuval Noah Harari has a quite unusual writing style. I like how he draws comparison to modern stuff. I definitely know that I'm going to reread this book. I liked it a lot. And spoiler alert, I have already bought Commodius, A Brief History of Tomorrow, and if I'm going to vacation, I'm taking that book with me, just like I took Different Seasons by Stephen King with me on vacation last year. And also a word about edition. I actually like this kinda square edition because I really wanted the white edition, and I found it after I bought this one. I wasn't searching well, but on the other hand, I do like this edition. I like it, and I like how it opens. I think this is the book that should be annotated. Now the next book I finished in 2 days. I bought it in January. Sure, I was already familiar with the story because I watched the film, but still. Pan's Labyrinth, Labyrinth of the Faun by Cornelia Funke. I like that this novelization is very loyal to the film, and there are also some interludes, but they also offer an interesting perspective on the events that happened in the film, sorry. Well, the ending made me sad. Now revisiting this story at an older age, I realized that Mercedes is the best character other than Ophelia herself. And while reading, I understood that I absolutely dislike Ophelia's mother. This book also features Cornelia Funke's very interesting choice of words. This is the book that I definitely want to read in English to appreciate Cornelia Funke's original writing, because she wrote it in English and English is not her native language. well, she's German, but at the same time I do kind of feel a little bit uneasy going back to this story, because the events that happened in this story, they are very disturbing, and the disturbance has nothing to do with the magical side of things, it has to do with the real side of things. It's absolutely scary. It's absolutely scary. I Hate Ophelia's Stepfather, definitely one of the best books of the 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, rejoice. For years I thought that his books aren't scary. I read his books, they were supposed to scare me, and I was like, yeah, okay, very interesting story. I like the story and characters and setting and whatever, but it isn't scary. I thought I'd never be scared by this writer, but I was wrong. I finally found the book that absolutely scared me. Absolutely, it was very scary. Misery by Stephen King. I still remember that I read Misery in February every night. I could read only around 25 pages because I was absolutely terrified of this book. It made me tremble. Sure, things get easier by the end, but it was still absolutely frightening. I really like this edition. I like how this I like this cover. It's very beautiful. Makes you think of a winter fairy tale, like I always said in my videos about this edition. I don't know if there's another Stephen King book that is able to scare me that much. I don't think I'm going to reread this one anytime soon because it was way too scary. And I tried watching the film and I couldn't finish because I was too terrified. But I'm definitely keep it, and this is the reason why Misery is one of my favorite books. It really scared me. But it's also written very well. Now come the satirical book, The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents by Sir Terry Pratchett. I just don't like the cover, but otherwise the novel is really great. A very good satire on society that younger audience can enjoy as much as adult audience. I heard that Terry Pratchett wrote this book because he was mad at some societal things and he turned his anger into a book, and the book turned out to be magnificent. Sure, the book itself has a very good story above all, very good characters, and even the side characters, they have their own personality and it's very good. I have to say that Melissa is my favorite character. I love how she's all about stories. There is a parody of Grimm Brothers, which is kinda a little bit ironic because while reading this book I went out and bought myself Grimm's fairy tales. And Maurice himself is quite a great character. And the funniest thing is that there is a very interesting in the end. This isn't something you would see in a book for a younger audience. If you read the book, you know what I mean. I haven't seen the film and I don't think I will. I don't like the cover or the animation. It should have been Pixar adapting this book or some other studio, but I just don't like the drawing style that much. Now next comes the book that I finished last week. I'm filming this video on June 29th. The Crucible by Arthur Miller. Finally I read this play. I actually liked it a lot. I'm not going to point out in details in this video. There's going to be a video in the future, but I definitely want to say that this book, while it claims to be about the power of false accusations, which is a quite interesting concept for any story, this book isn't completely about false accusations. Sure, they play a role and the story is set in a world of false accusations, but the driving story is about something else. Nonetheless, it works so well and you feel sorry for these characters who were wrongly accused of witchcraft. Also, this play features a very interesting language. People, before they begin their sentence, the characters, they say excellence, excellence. Married women are referred to as goody. For example, there's a character named Elizabeth Proctor and they're like goody Proctor. Even though I have zero knowledge of making music, this book does inspire me to form a band and name it, just to name it Goody Proctor. Sounds like a good band name, pardon me. Am I going to read this? Yes, I'd love to read this. Okay, this book I did kinda reread, but it's still one of the best books I read this year. The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I mentioned many times how much I love the series, well, at least the first book, and I already own the second one, The Wise Man's Fear, in 2 parts. Yeah, I own The Kingkiller Chronicle in both English and Russian, and I'm definitely reading The Wise Man's Fear. I need to read The Wise Man's Fear mostly because I wasn't impressed by it when I first read it, but I'm going to give it a second chance. But this one I'm still a fan of, and this book also opened my eyes to a few things. For example, what happened when, spoiler alert, Quoth ran away from university to Trevan. For some reason I did not remember the trees. I did remember the little dragon, Dracos, but I did not remember the trees. And I also reviewed the very last chapter differently. I do remember what happened in the last chapter, but some details I didn't remember. I won't continue talking too much about Name of the Wind. If you are interested, I have talked about it in my previous videos. I recommend checking them out. The next book is Children of Dune by Frank Herbert. This is the 3rd book in the Dune series. Well, this volume contains the first 3 books of Dune series. I read Dune Messiah last year and I did not enjoy it. I was like, meh, I didn't like it. But Children of Dune, on the other hand, were magnificent. I absolutely love how the book is mostly about generations. I like how the book shows that conditions can change, and so do generational values. And also each character is on their place. None of the characters they feel extra. All characters they fulfill a role in the story. And it's done so well. I do feel a little bit sorry for Alia, but at the same time, yeah, spoiler alert, she turned to the dark side. I have been reading this full volume from October 2021 till January or February 2023. It took nearly 2 years to read this fully. I lost count on how many times I have been showing this book in my videos. Now it's time for the second volume with the rest of the series. If you are slightly disappointed by the second one, don't worry. The Children of Dune is magnificent. I think that one of the reasons behind that is that the book doesn't focus on Paul Atreides. I grew to dislike Paul as the series went on. I liked him in the first one, at least in the first half, but in the second one I hated him, and I was glad that in the third one the focus is on other characters. I'm just going to show you these books. I won't say much. Harry Potter 1 and 2. Just Harry Potter 1 and 2. No words needed. This is Harry Potter. Finally, the last book in this video is Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. Technically, this is a little bit of cheating because I didn't finish the book. I have less than 100 pages, but this is my second read. I am familiar with the story. I read it already, and I read most of the book, so it doesn't count. So I decided to add the book in the video anyway. When I read The Good Omens for the first time, the book felt a little bit dry for me, and I thought that the book would work better if I read it again in English. I was looking for the English version, and now I'm glad that I didn't find it. I'm glad I read this in Russian, because there are details that probably would have been harder to understand in English. The book doesn't seem that dry to me anymore. Definitely I appreciate the dynamics between Aziraphale and Crowley and the kids, and even Newt and Anathema, or however is her name spelled. I also like the satire of this book and the themes. I love how the forces of heaven and hell are portrayed here. It's a more comedic way. I still want to read this book again in English. And before I finish, I do want to point out some honorable mentions. So finally, a year after buying this book, I read Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie. I read it in 2 days. This is the case where I like the victim. Apparently, Agatha Christie likes to portray her victims who were murdered as some kind of a jerks. Here, the victim was absolutely amazing. Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. Sure, I dislike Peter Pan and Tinkerbell's characters, but the story itself is kinda iconic. I do want to warn you that this book has some old-fashioned language, which can be hard to perceive, especially if you are a foreign English speaker like me. And some Hans Christian fairy tales too. Yes, I continue reading these. I liked It's Quite True, about the power of gossip, the nightingale, about the bird that ended up in Emperor of China's hands. And I was horrified by the steadfast tin soldier. Anyway, that's all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. What are your best books of 2023 so far? Let me know down in the comments. See you next time. Goodbye.